And we are live, my friend. Welcome to our today's live. This is Kazungu Duncan. I hope that you are doing fine. This is the CEO Podcast, but now I'm doing it a live stream on TikTok. I hope that this is fine. And if you'll be able to join us, please feel very, very free to always be there. Comment, send me a request. I'll always accept, and then we can talk. Today we shall be doing I'll be explaining the difference between sex and gender. It is something that many people are confused about. It is something that many people do not understand. And if you do not understand and you are here, feel very, very free to comment, because at the end of the day, I'm going to explain this. We had two previous live streams where we talked about dating and marriage. And then yesterday we talked about the issue of ladies using men in relationships. Those of you who were a part of this, thank you so very much. And I'm hoping that you will also come back and listen to this. Now, so for you, I know maybe you also do not understand the difference between sex and gender, and it is my wish that I'll make you understand. Moha, thank you so much for joining. You are a blessing to me. You can also send me some likes so that I can reach out to many more people. My friend, without further ado, I want us to start. Now, if I can define sex according to the Oxford Dictionary, it says that sex is the biology of a person, whether he or she is or anatomically male or female, determined by chromosomal, gonadal, that is the presence of testes and ovaries, genital, and hormonal factors. So in other words, we say this is purely biology. You cannot change it. Like if when the child is born and the mother is asked, what sex is the child? And the mother will say, he is a boy, or the mother will say, she is a girl. So there are some things that she looks at and she defines that this is a girl or this is a boy. So it is the biology of a person, whether he is anatomically male or female. And this is determined by the chromosomes. It is determined by the presence of testes or ovaries, and also the genitals, and of course the hormonal factors. This is what defines sex. Now, when we define gender, associated with being male or female. So this is culture, the culture part of it, the attributes of the culture, which determines whether a person is male or female. So these attributes, opportunities, and relationships are normally, are socially constructed and are learned through socialization processes. So from different social statuses, from different cultures, you find that they define the fact of gender differently. So there are things, there are attributes that a male should have. There are attributes that a female should have. And once you have that, socially or culturally, you are accepted either as male or as female. So that means it gives room for change. It gives room for diversity, right? But when you come to sex, sex is the biology. It is the anatomy. You cannot change it. Agi, thank you so very much for being a part of this. Sorry. Now, there's something that we call gender expression. So what is gender expression? Thank you for those of you who are joining. You can also drop us a comment and let us know your view about all this. Now, gender expression. So this is the internal display of one's gender. So this is from the inside of the person. He can define himself as a male, or she can define herself as a female. So this is from the inside. So it is the internal display of one's gender. That is the appearance disposition, social behavior, and other factors measured on a scale of masculinity or femininity. So this is internal. So that means you can have a female who feels from the internal that she's masculine, right? We shall get to that later. I know there is a lot of confusion when it comes to that. So she is a female, but inside herself, the internal of herself, the gender expression of herself, she feels more masculine than feminine. The same applies to some men, that the male will feel from the internal more feminine than masculine. And you find that it creates a lot of confusion, but then we shall discuss this in a few. If you're finding value in this very video, be very sure to like this video so that we can reach out to many more people. Now, so this one is as a view of the cultural context, which is okay, and that one tells us that there in the culture there are some works or some tasks that a man should do, and there are some tasks that a woman or a female should do. So both male and female have estrogen and testosterone. This term is so hard for me. These are hormones. So you find that in female, both males and females have these two hormones, but then there is a balance. So you'll find that estrogen is too much in females, whereas the testosterone hormone is much in males. And that one, like estrogen will give females a soft skin, will give them the features that are required for a female. So there is a balance where one is more than the other, which now gives you whether you are female or male. So when you look at even testosterone, that this hormone on Omera. So if the males have this much, and maybe that is what gives us the broken voice, that is what gives us the beard, that is what gives us what makes us a male. Now, there is a problem when there is an imbalance. So if there is an imbalance between these two hormones, then my friend, we shall have what we call transgender. So we shall have transgender issues, or basically gender identity crisis. So maybe in males, if you find that in males we have the estrogen going so high, then there will be a transgender issue. There will be a gender identity issue. Now the man will feel more feminine than masculine, and he will want to be a trans woman. A trans woman means this man is transiting from being a male to a female. But remember, the genitals will remain to be man or male genitals. It brings a lot of confusion, but I hope that at the end of this video, you are going to understand absolutely everything. So you find that if there is an imbalance, there will be a transgender. And that's why we have trans women and we have trans men. People who are transiting from one gender to another gender. Now let's talk about gender identity, because after there is an imbalance from the internal expression of one's gender, whether male or female, then there is an imbalance in the hormones that I've mentioned. We bring in the gender identity crisis. And that's why I want us to look at gender identity. We define it and we find more about it. So this is also a person's internal sense and personal experience of gender. Now we are getting personal because different people feel differently. And so this, we say it is the person's internal sense and personal experience of gender. That is whether one thinks oneself is masculine or feminine or none, right? So if I am a man the way I am, if I am feeling more feminine, then I have a gender identity crisis, right? And if there is a female who feels to be male, then there is a gender identity crisis. But then it gets more worse where someone is unable to tell whether he is a male or a female. And that's why we say there is none. You neither feel to be masculine, neither do you feel to be feminine. And then you are what we call gender non-conforming. But we shall get to that later on. So I wanted just to note that gender expression does not always match gender identity. It doesn't always match, right? What the social or the culture expects of you does not always match. Does not always match that which you feel from the inside. Let me hear from Rob. What he wants to say. Maybe we listen to him. It's connecting. Okay. Robert, you better check on your internet. Okay, I think Robert should check on his internet and then come back. I cannot connect. Yeah, so it does not always match. But I'll get to you very clearly because I know it also confuses so many people. Now, let's talk about gender identity disorder. Gender identity disorder. Although WHO stopped calling that way, they are calling it a distress because they found that gender identity disorder is a bit mean. So this is a dysphoria or a distress that a person experiences as a result of feelings of incongruence or mismatch between their inherent gender and the sex were assigned at birth. So for example, the child was born a boy at birth, and when the doctor asked the mother that what gender or what sex is the child, the mother said it is a boy because she saw the presence of the penis and what defines a man. Now, at puberty, everything now changes. Now, the boy feels more feminine and he wants to, feel to be a female. Now, you see here, there is a distress as a feeling of incongruence or mismatch of the gender, the feeling of the gender against the sex that he was assigned at birth. So once we have that, we have what we call gender distress, or what they used to call it, gender identity disorder. Now, what is gender incongruence? So this is a condition in which the gender identity of a person does not align with the sex at birth, right? The condition in which the gender identity of a person does not align with the gender, with the sex assigned at birth. So she might have been given a girl, whatever sex, right? Then at puberty, she feels to be male. So you find that there's a mismatch, there is an incongruence between the gender identity of one's person and the sex that was assigned at birth. And you'll find that if she was a girl when she was born, and she still is, then the birth certificate will read, F at the place of sex or gender. They will write there F to mean female. If it was a boy, they will write there M to mean male. And then this person comes at puberty, everything changes, the hormones are imbalanced, and things now start going astray. Let me see this request first before we continue. Hey, how are you?
I'm fine.
This is Duncan. Who are you?
I'm Lensa.
Lensa, welcome. Thank you for sending a request.
Okay, thank you.
So where are you watching from?
I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Thank you so very much. We are just having a little talk about the difference between sex and gender. And I've reached at a point where we're dealing with gender identity crisis, where you find that someone, if, for example, she's a lady, she feels more masculine, so she wants to be a male. I don't know if you have ever experienced or met a transgender person. Have you ever met a transgender?
Met what?
Huh? Have you ever experienced or met a transgender? Someone, for example, she is a lady, but she feels to be a man.
I don't understand.
There's a confusion. Eh? So when we are talking about gender identity crisis, we mean that, for example, okay, I think I've lost her, maybe because of internet, or maybe she doesn't understand. But anyway, thank you so very much for tuning in. Now, we were talking about gender incongruence, and we've defined what gender incongruence is. Now, there is what we call cisgender. Now, cisgender is in this category, the sex assigned at birth corresponds to the true sex. So in this group, these people do not have gender identity conflicts. No. When that person was born a boy and he reaches puberty, he still feels to be a boy. When she was born a girl, she reaches puberty and she still feels to be a girl. That is what we call cisgender. They do not have a conflict in their gender identity. They identify themselves as either male or female. So that is what we call cisgender, right? And most of us are cisgender, and we shall be looking at the other ones. So cisgender, the gender that they have at the moment corresponds to the sex that was assigned at birth. I hope that makes sense right now. We have what we call gender non-conforming. Now, in this category, these are people who neither feel to be female nor male. They really do not identify with the pronoun he or she. So they will end up calling themselves they. I don't know if you've ever had people calling this one person and saying I am they, because they cannot define themselves as either male or female. They cannot. So that's what we call gender non-conforming. Right? I don't know if I'm making sense. Please let me know if you are understanding these terms down in the comments below. Because if I am not making sense, then I believe it will be so hard for us to move on. So for gender non-conforming people, they neither feel to be female nor male, and therefore some of them use he/she as their pronoun. So when you are talking to them, you'll say he or she, right? And it's one person. And others say, I want to be called they. So when you refer to them, you don't call he, you don't call she, you say they. These are gender non-conforming. And after that, now it brings out what we call sex orientation. People, this is now going towards what we call, sex orientation. The activity itself, they are interested in different things. But then I have a little story. We've talked of the imbalance between the hormones in our bodies, and then the feeling, the gender expression, and the gender identity disorder, where people are now feeling otherwise, the sex aligned at birth, and the gender that the person claims to be different. Which brings us to transgender. And we talked of the trans man, the trans woman, of course. Sorry. So we find a trans man is a female who is she's moving from being a female to a male. So she'll stand and say, I'm a trans man. If it is a trans woman, then this is a male who feels to be female, and he will identify himself as a woman. And therefore, they change their pronouns. So a trans woman will use the pronoun she. And remember, biologically, a trans woman is a male. biologically, let's say sex, the sex of a trans woman is male. But then when you come to gender identity crisis and he is transforming or transiting into being a female, then we call that a trans woman. And then he will change the pronoun from he to she. So we will be referring to him as she. I hope I'm not confusing anyone. When you talk of the trans man, this is a female who feels to be male. She feels more masculine than feminine, and therefore she will want to transit from being a female to a male. And therefore she changes the pronoun from she to he. So when you are referring to her, sexually she is a female. Biologically she is a female. She has all the features of a female. When you look at her in the first place, you will know I've met a female. But then when she presents the papers, she says she is a male. So she uses the pronoun he. I hope I'm making myself clear. Now, it gets so worse when now we have these people, if they commit a crime and they are taken to a police station, the question is, where will these people be taken? For example, if let me say she, because I want to use the trans woman, if she is a trans woman and she's been taken to a court, where will she be taken? In which cell? Male cell or female cell? Remember, this person is a male. He has committed a crime. He's been taken to a police station. In the first place, who is going to check him? Because when he presents the documents do not match the sex or the gender that he is expressing. In the birth certificate or in the ID, it will be reading male. But then when he comes, he says, I am female. So the question is, which police will check this person? Is it the male police or the female police? Question number 2. When this person wants to be taken to a cell, in which cell will she be taken? Will she be taken into male or female? Remember, it is a trans woman. This is a man who feels to be female. Now, he feels to be feminine, and yet the anatomy is male. He has a penis. He has everything that defines a male. But then he identifies himself as a woman. So in which cell will he be taken? Will he be taken into male cell or into female cell? Now, there are a few things that will come out. Because at the first place, the police will get confused. First of all, they will be unable to identify who is going to check. Because if he identifies himself as a woman, then it forces the lady to check him. But is it right? Do they allow women to check males in the police? That is a question. Secondly, when he's being taken to a cell, now the man will say, I feel more feminine, I want to be taken to a female cell. But the police will be confused. This is a man. How on earth will we take a man into a female cell? There are two things that will come out. If you take the man into the female cell, yes, he identifies himself as feminine, he might end up raping the females. Confusion. If you take him to the males, and the males realize that this man is a trans woman, then they will rape him. So the question remains, where will this man be taken? Where? It's a bit confusion. Now, the same applies to a trans man. She is a lady, anatomically she is a lady. The documents identify herself as a lady, but when she comes before you, she tells you, I am a trans man. I am a man. I feel more masculine than feminine. Which side will you take her? If you dare take her to a male cell, the males will rape her automatically, without question, because her anatomy is female. However much she feels to be male, her anatomy is still female. So if you dare take her to a male cell, then the males are going to rape her. If you take her to a female cell, she'll feel uncomfortable and maybe she'll want to rape the female. I don't know if a female can rape another female. Anyway, but there will be a confusion. So you find that in the department, such as like the criminal department or the police department, they find it so hard to deal with this. Okay, we can still apply the same when it comes to institutions. When you go to a gate of an institution, you need to be checked. Now, if I come like a man and I'm saying I feel more female, now who will check me? Will you allow the men to check you, or will you allow the female to check you? There's a little bit of confusion there. Now, when these people are asked to present their documents, in most cases, they do not present. Why? Because it could be a ticket for them to go to jail. Because they will say you are impersonating someone. Because I will present the document. For example, my ID has been written as Duncan Atenya Kazungu and sex has been written as male. But assume that I see myself as a female. I may end up changing my name to Ann Washiru or Ann Mukoshi or Ann whatever. So I have a new name. The name does not match the name that is on the ID. The sex does not match the sex on the ID, the sex that I say I am. So I'll come to an institution, they'll look at me, look at the documents, and when I tell them I'm a female, my name is Anne, and yet the name on the ID reads Duncan, then they will throw me out. Or they will call the security and I'll be arrested for impersonating someone, right? And so when you ask trans people or trans persons to give you their identity or their identification documents, they end up not giving you because they fear. They better not attend that meeting. They better not enter that institute or institution to ask for whatever they wanted to ask. They better just go away because they feel frustrated. They feel at the end of the day, they are going to be arrested. So this is an issue that many people have to understand, and they have also to listen to the trans people. There was a case in court where a man was portraying to be female. So yes, the documents are reading male, but himself he says, I am a female. And so the court was using the pronoun he. And every time he could say, I'm not a he, I am a she. Now the judges called themselves and asked, now what do we do? Because they were a bit also confused. They did not understand how to deal with trans persons. And they said, then let's drop the idea of using pronouns. Let us no longer use pronouns. Let us just call by the name. Or just let us avoid pronouns. Now, this guy was found guilty. But remember, he says he's female. And the court was unable to define whether they will take him to a female prison or a male prison. According to what he expresses as his gender, he should be taken to a female prison. But the problem is the genitals are male. So you cannot dare to take a male into female prison. And the court was confused. So what they did, they just said, now we are not going to imprison you. Instead, you are going to pay us fine. Sorry. So you find that the court said, we better take a fine rather than taking you to prison, because we do not really understand in which prison we shall take you. So this is a serious case. It is a serious case, and I believe many people, especially in the security department, they find it so hard to deal with the trans persons. So sex is the biology. You cannot change the sex. Gender is the internal feeling of incongruence or mismatch of the gender of the person, expressing it against the sex that he was assigned at birth. I believe at the end of the day you've understood. I've been having a chat with one of us, and she was saying, I really do not understand. But I hope that at the end of the day, you've really understood. For those of you who've been here, thank you so very much. David, Baraka, you are welcome. But we have finished the first bit of it. I'll be doing another live stream in the next 2 minutes just to explain some stuff. If you want to understand more about the LGBTIQ, then my friend, you will be in our next live stream. But this was just to explain the difference between sex and gender. And we've talked about the transgender, but we shall talk more about it when it comes to the next live stream. I believe this has been of great help to you, and if that is the case, feel very, very free to like this video. And if you like the general knowledge and the general thing that I offer on this channel, feel very, very free to follow me for more. Otherwise, thank you for sticking around. I hope that I'll see you in our next live stream. Peace.